The jokes write themselves. I mean, we can't get out of it, right? Do you have a strategy? I know what works because I know what doesn't work. Let me break down what's going on in the bedroom. I've done it all. Everything in a porn movie is created for visual impact. The worst thing that guys can do is think that the reason you're not lasting is because you're starting position.
All right, guys, welcome back. It's the Johnny Cassell Show, and today we got a very special guest, a dear friend of mine, Mr. Erik Everhard. How you doing, buddy?
Excellent, man.
Welcome back to London.
Yeah, it's good to be back. It's always good to be back.
It's good to have you. I was just literally on the way here looking at your IMDb profile, right? Because I posted a post on Instagram and I was asking people, like, I'm going to be interviewing you, throw in your questions. And I put on that, he's a multi-AVN award winner. And I was like, wait a minute, what are the awards that you've actually, I can't just
go down the rabbit hole, shall we?
I can't just say this stuff. I'm like, what awards have you won? We don't have to list all of them off, but I think, you've been in the game for a long time.
Yeah.
You are one of the top 100 male adult performers. And you've done every scene that's possible to imagine. Is there any award out of your career that you'd wished you'd had or still going for?
Well, I was always still going for the AVN version of Male Performer of the Year because I won XRCO Male Performer of the Year. I won the Adam Film Guide Male Performer of the Year. I won every other Male Performer of the Year except that one. That's the elusive one. So
you're still striving for that one?
Nah. You get to a point where you understand every game has politics, right? It would be no different than if you look at the Academy Awards. Does the best actor always win? No. Not always.
Yeah, there's always politics involved in these awards.
And the piece that people don't really understand in my business is you don't see what goes on. So there's the external validations that people are seeking, but then there's also that internal validation. And the internal validation is, look, I'm the only guy out there that could say I'm batting 1,000%. Like I've never failed. So you hire me, job is getting done. Like job is getting done, right?
Yeah.
And Rocco refers to me as the last of the Mohicans. Like that's my new nickname because I'm the only guy who's never taken Viagra, not injecting, drug-free, and still able to do it at this high level where young kids would look at me and they go, "How?" Right? And it's like, well, it's because you're all messed up in here.
Yeah, and that's really what I want to get into a bit later when we start talking about your transition into helping guys out there with their sexual confidence and their performance. I mean, geez, we met on Clubhouse.
Yeah.
That was a darling that came out of the lockdown COVID situation. We did about 360 rooms together, educating people on everything around sex, confidence, performance. That was wild, man. I mean, I didn't realize we could go so deep and so wide. Oh, here they come already. They're deep and so wide, right? It did take long to get there.
the jokes write themselves. I mean, we can't get out of it, right?
God,
it's going to be nonstop.
Trying to keep this clean as possible, you know.
But it's true. It's true.
I mean, you could take one topic and we just went so deep with it. And what we found was like, we really created a nice little space for people to openly talk about things that attach such a taboo to normally.
Well, yeah. And I think also, you know this as a dating coach, right? Guys don't know what they don't know.
Right.
It's like, often I'll say, look, as men, we come out of the womb like we're given the Ferrari. They gave us the keys to the Ferrari at 12 years old, but nobody teaches you how to drive it. Right. So it's like you come out of the womb, you got your penis, you're like, yes, I can go do the whole world with this. But how? How do I drive this thing? Or is it driving me? And I think when guys start to learn, yeah, you can control this thing. Yeah, you can have strategies. You can have different perspectives. You can have agency. And I think it means a lot to guys when they can say, okay, I can actually do this. Right? Because a lot of people don't have the confidence.
Yeah. I mean, starting off as someone that ventured into the porn industry the obvious question, and obviously the one you've answered quite a lot, is, how did you get into it? I mean, I know what you've told me about the guy that you met at the gym and where the nickname came from. Please do share a bit about that.
Okay, so how I initially got in is I was attending massage therapy school, right?
I did a massage course as well.
Yeah.
I'm fully qualified.
This wasn't a course. This was a 3-year program. This was the creme de la creme, Johnny. And, so it's like you're doing school all day long. Lunch break comes. I got my lunch. I go in the lunchroom, and they have these newspapers, right? Free newspaper that's got the band listing, what's going on in town, et cetera, et cetera. So I grab the newspaper. I'm thumbing through it. And then suddenly there's this like 4-inch by 4-inch ad, right? That says, women and couples to do a porn movie. And I'm like, oh my God.
How old were you then?
I was, at that age, I was 20.
Yeah.
20 years old.
Yeah.
And my ex-girlfriend used to joke with me, and that was the thing. She was, you'd be able to do porno movies. And come on, Johnny, we all know every woman that's in love with us is going to say, oh, you're wonderful. So it's like, yeah, thanks, sweetheart, great. But when I saw that ad, I thought, maybe she's onto something here, right? So what I do, I mustered up the courage and I called. Right?
I love mustered up the courage. Yeah,
mustered up the courage. Yeah. And I called them, and sure enough, what did they do? Hang up the phone.
Oh yeah,
right. Which I understood once I became really famous in the industry. Like I got it, because let's face it, it was the 0.1% that could do it, and they had already, even as an amateur company, they had all the guys that had failed.
Yeah.
So I go back to my existence as a massage therapist, and 7 months goes by, about 7 months, and same scenario. Go to lunchroom, got my lunch, eating lunch. Grab the newspaper, thumbing through, and it's like, bam, same ad. And now I'm just like, oh, fuck. Okay, this is like, I don't know if this is a sign or if this is mocking me, and I realized I didn't really try that hard. I just called once, they said no, and I said, oh, okay. So I'm like, let's call them again, right? So I call, no. And, but one day I get the owner on the phone, because I could tell it was a different voice. And he says to me, hey, why don't you come by our studio? We'll take some Polaroids of you, because this is way back when. And we'll see if you got the equipment, and maybe one day you get a job. I said, hey, well, it's better than being hung up on, right? And went down there. I remember clear as day, because it was in this seedy area of downtown Vancouver. Go up these stairs, big metal door, knock on the door. And, they open it up, and they're like, hey, you Erick? I'm like, yeah. And they just look me straight in the eyes. They say, can you fuck a girl for us right now? Dude, I mean, imagine me, right? I'm like, oh yeah, I was 21, right? Terrified, right? And I'm just like, okay. And there was this like B-grade stripper that she was just hanging out at their studio because she'd worked for them before. And I was there, she was there. And so they're like, okay, let's try it. Action. Yeah.
Fuck.
And that was it. Like about 15 minutes later, I was doing my first scene.
Incredible.
And then I remember,
So what? I mean, you didn't have the name back then, right? So
no,
they didn't give you an alias, or
no. I was just, my real name, Mitch Hartwell. There was no moniker at the time, right? Yeah. Didn't have a name because I didn't think this was going to be a career. Much like yourself, I'm willing to admit, you like you like to obtain stories as well in life, right? And so I thought,
it's dangerous.
Yeah, it's dangerous. But I thought to myself, oh man, this is being, when I'm 85 years old and, in diapers in the old folks home, this is going to be a great story.
Yeah.
That was my whole idea behind it. So, so I do the scene. I remember them coming in and they're like, hey, anytime in the next like 10 minutes, if you could do a cum shot. I'm like, oh, 10 minutes? Oh, like 1 minute, done, right? And they gave me a little bit of money. I was like, oh, I'm getting paid for this. Okay. And that was it. And I left thinking like, that's going to be a great story, and didn't think about it again.
Yeah.
And then it was about 3 days later, phone rings and it's them. And they're like, hey, can you come by and do that again? And then it was later on that that one of the editors told me. He's like, you were the only guy that came by that was able to do it.
Wow.
Like you were the one. Because the owner did all the scenes because he was the only guy that could get hard.
Right. Of course, the owner did all the scenes. Yeah.
You can pull it off.
Okay, so that was the entry in. So everything is a euphemism. Isn't it?
Yeah. That was my way in.
And then your gym buddy.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
This is where the name came.
Yeah. So this was I told one of my best friends, and he wasn't just the gym buddy. He was the steroid dealer of the gym. He was the drug dealer at the gym, right? Because I trained at this hardcore gym, and everybody knew the short little guy sold all the gear, right?
Right.
And he was the first real entrepreneur that I met because he had the watch, he drove the Corvette, and he was smart though.
Right.
And I remember, I told him that I had done this. I showed him because my first video came out. I showed it to him, and he's like, "Oh man, this is incredible! Like we got to find out more information." So there was a super famous porn starlet that was signing at one of the outlet video stores in Vancouver. So he's like, we got to go get information. So we went down there and waited in line. We get up to the signing thing, and I had some box covers with me because we said, look, I know every guy has said, how do I get in the business? I said, I'm already in the business. That's me. That's my penis. It's hard. What do we got to know? And she was super cool. She was like, well, okay, here's what you got to do. Here's how many times you could work. Here's what you could get paid. Here are a couple phone numbers. And we walk out of there, and my buddy Jeff, I remember the door closes of the outlet video store, and he turns to me and he says, look, man, I got a gut feeling about this, and my gut has never been wrong. You're going to be big at this. So if you want to get down to LA, I'll back you financially to get down there. And I thought about it for a couple of days, and then I dropped out of school, and it was like, all right, we're doing this.
Wow.
And so we're sitting around the gym that day, and it's like suddenly, everybody finds out, and it's like, oh, you got to have a name.
Yeah.
And I remember Jeff just within 10 seconds, he's just like, Erick Everhard. And then he had the whole reason behind it, right? He's like, because in the video, your dick was super hard, it never went down, and you got to have alliteration, like Vince Voyer, Jenna Jameson, Erick Everhard. You got to spell your name with a K because you're blonde and you look Nordic. And imagine all these meatheads were like, oh, that's genius, Jeff. We were just shocked, right? And that was it. Then it was like, okay, it's Erick Everhard, and we're going to do this.
And when do you get to a point in all of that career where you decide that you wanted to get involved into helping guys? Is there only so many years of that a performer can last in there? Is the age thing on your mind? Is are you having a bit of an identity crisis at some point? We think, is this what I want to be remembered by? What were the turning points for you to pivot into something like helping men with their performance?
You know what it was? It was, I started to get disillusioned with the business because everything that my North Star, my compass in life has always been fun. That's always been my driving thing. For me, coaching men is fun. I love that job. When I used to work at the gym, that was fun. And when I first got into the porno business, it was fun, right? And so for me, I hit a point in about 2008, 2009, where I started to become a little disillusioned. And I remember taking a relationship workshop. And after the end of this workshop, I heard about this thing called, NLP. And I was like, oh, what's that? And so they told me, and I said, well, where's the best place someone could learn this? And there was a little school up in Northern California, just outside San Francisco. And they said, oh, this is one of the best places in America. I said, okay, well, that's where I want to go. So I spent 3 years traveling up pretty much every month, getting my master's level certification in NLP. And after that 3 years, I was not the same person. It totally deconstructed who I believed I was and my thoughts about myself. It was like, you got that onion and you're just peeling the layers of the onion, the traumas, the this, the that. And so at the end of that, I was left with that very existential question, okay, well, what's my purpose? Because it's not to be a porno actor, but what is it now? Because now I really felt like I was lost, because for such a long time, it's like, porno was kind of an identity, and then it wasn't. And it's like, okay, this isn't what I want to do anymore. But
Right.
so, then after that, I went down the rabbit hole of working with shamanic plant medicines, to try and get some answers. So I was working with ayahuasca, still trying to get like, what's the purpose? And then I was dating a woman in Los Angeles. And I remember, she was a civilian gal. And I remember her saying to me one time that, what I was doing in bed was next level. Like, she was like, look, I don't know what the hell you're doing, but this is some next level stuff. You should really write a book. And that was the first like germination of that, right? As we can see over there.
Yeah. Unleash your sexual superpowers and the Tao of Easting Pussy.
But it just never crossed my mind. And I used to have, when I was going through my NLP programs and everything, I had my Bulgarian friend, and he was a coach, and he used to always tell me, he's like, oh man, he goes, you're totally a coach. I'm like, no, I don't want to be a coach, right? Like, have you ever had it where sometimes your peers, your friends can see the person inside of you that you cannot see?
Right. Yeah.
And it was that moment, right? It's like, he could see that, and I was always thinking, oh no, I don't want to do that, and here we are. That's what I do, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that was really where that transition started. And then one day I was like, you know what? I just need to get this information out of my head, because nobody can compete on my level. Like within the adult industry, there was nobody.
Yeah.
Because they needed drugs or they failed. Like I've seen all the top guys fail, and I was like, look, I've never failed. I've had days that were up and down, but I always had a structure and the mental fortitude to be like, no, I can make this happen, and in some crazy places, right? And so I knew I had something special there.
I want to segue into, we touched on, you had a relationship with a girl in LA, and I mean, that is quite an interesting talking point in itself. Being a performer in the space that you're in, how have you come across navigating through the struggles of what you obviously must face when it comes to dating? I mean, it's a lot to take on. I mean, even someone that's in my sort of space of work, it's, people approach it with skepticism, maybe curiosity. It might be a short-term thing, but as a long-term thing, it does take someone that's very perhaps close to the industry or has a wider understanding.
I've seen it both ways, and I don't think you can say that either is better, because when they're close to the industry, they understand the industry, and sometimes ignorance is bliss as well. So I've had it both times, but regardless, it's always difficult. I think,
I mean, at the end of the day, you're going to work and you're fucking.
Yeah. That's call a spade, Johnny. Call a spade.
That's a day of work. And, you're leaving the bed of your girlfriend to go and fuck some people and then come back and then fuck up. Like, that's a lot to take on. And what makes it difficult too, right? And this is where I would often see guys struggle, is like, well, where can you compartmentalize your mind at the time? Right.
Because
I mean, like when you're performing, I mean that in itself, the psychology aspect of, some people, they talk about when they move into a new relationship, they're having thoughts of an ex-partner, especially if it's the first time making love to the new partner, right? So I mean, you must have to, as you say, compartmentalize certain things when these things creep up when you're in a relationship, performing.
Well, I mean, that's also, I always talk to my clients about this concept of the white noise, right? Like, did you ever remember Poltergeist when you were a kid? Little girl's got her hands against the screen, they're back. But that static is what's going on inside my mind, because you can't be having thoughts at the moment if you're going to be able to perform. And this is whether it's on a set or in a bedroom, right? You have to be able to move totally into sensations, right? And you need to stay with what you're doing. So it's like everything has to be action-based, action, because, you think about sex, it's a feeling act, it's a doing act. It is not a thinking act. We can't think our way through sex, right?
Yeah.
But it's definitely difficult. Like, there's no easy way to manage a relationship if that's your job. I think sometimes the media likes to glorify these things, right? It's like, I think anybody that's had multiple girlfriends will be like, and it's hard enough to have one, let alone try and deal with multiple.
One's enough.
One's enough, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it of course it's difficult, and there's no way to say that it's not. You have to be able to manage your emotions. You have to be able to soothe her emotions, and you have to be able to stay centered as a man, and focused on, okay, well, what is my mission? Why am I doing this? Right? Can I, at the moment of a drop of a hat, can I shift my emotions and go into work mode where I'm able to get this erection no matter what?
And have you ever seen it really affect the relationships that you're in, and how has that been?
I've always been good at managing it. But again, we are talking about managing, right? I've never seen it where it was easy. And it's not for the faint of heart, right? Like, I think if you're going to be a guy and you want to be doing this business and you want to have a steady relationship, it's just an extra level. It's almost like, leveling up in the video game, right? It's like, okay, I need some extra superpowers in my accoutrement of skills, so to speak, to be able to manage her emotions, because her emotions are going to be way higher than they normally would, because of course she knows you're going to work. She knows why you're going to work, but she also knows what you're doing at work. Mm-hmm. And that's where you have to make them understand that you do love and care about them. Like, and that has to be forefront of it. But at the same time, you have to be able to let them understand that, hey, this is a job, this is what I do, and this is how you met me. And that's, and it's that delicate balance, because, I think it was David Data that says it the best. Like, if you were to forego your mission for a woman, right, well, then she's not going to respect you at the end of the day.
Well, that's right, yeah.
So it's like, even though this is difficult, I have to do this because I'm trying to achieve something. Mm-hmm. And I think if you can get that across to people in a way that's loving and that they understand, well, then you got a chance of making it work.
Yeah. Well, let's get into, some of the things that you've come across helping guys, mm-hmm. right? So, I think the obvious ones are out there that I can think off the top of my head. Performance anxiety.
Yeah.
Huge one.
Massive.
Right? Huge one. I was working with a female client recently, this week actually, and she's got a new partner, and that's something that she'd experienced with him. And he talked the big game of how it was going to go down. And
I got a story about this if you got a minute to segue on that one.
I'm sure we can slide a minute in for it.
Yeah. So, because I talk about this a lot, right? Like, the louder men are, it's like the harder they fall. I remember, this was way back in time, there was a website where literally, not joking, this was not fakery, this was real, like reality porno, right? Where they would go to a adult video store live, and they would bring a girl with them, and they would just ask the guys that were browsing for the DVDs, hey, who wants to have sex with this girl? We have a hotel room next door. And this was not staged. This was real. And I would tag along because it was kind of hilarious, right? It was like watching a train wreck and you couldn't not watch. And I remember there's this one guy, right? He was this older black gentleman, and he just, from the get-go, he's talking the smack. Oh man, I got a giant dick. Like, you just wait till I'm going to kill it in there. And he, like, the whole way he is just talking like, oh wait, I'm going to kill her. This is going to be the best thing you've ever seen. You've never seen a dick so big, blah, blah. And there was another guy in the group, this, he's a lighter skinned black guy, and he's just quiet, like a little mouse, just a quiet little guy. Like, he's just coming along for the ride, right? Of course, we get to the hotel room. What happens?
Yeah, it's always the same.
Little dude. Yeah. I mean, angry wood, right? Pointing to the sky. The other guy, he probably was there for an hour, woodless, talking the whole time. Oh, just you wait until I get it together, man. Just you wait. Oh, you're gonna see, right? And that's what I've seen my entire career. It was always.
There's something you said about that. I mean, yeah. When I grew up around boxing, and I mean, whether you're a fan of it or not, if you just watch a few videos of fighters entering the ring, more often than not, it's the ones that are clowning that end up losing the fight, getting knocked clean out. You know, like there's a lot to be said of just being calm, being chill, and execute.
Yeah, because that's what it is, right? It's like true confidence. If you really know what you're doing, you ain't telling anybody. You're calm.
Yeah, that's it.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you know, a good buddy of mine who's a Russian Sistema master. I mean, he's a British guy, of course, too, right? You take him to the bar, he's the most quiet little guy, like his glass of wine. And I mean, the guy is an absolute rock crusher. No tattoos, nothing.
Yeah.
But he could beat up anybody.
Yeah.
And he's just the most calm because he knows.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
He knows.
With that then, performance anxiety for those guys, how do they combat it? Like what can they do to best avoid that?
I mean, one of the first things you got to understand when you're dealing with performance anxiety is, okay, well, do you have a strategy? Like a lot of the times, like I'll talk with clients. I'm like, okay, let me break down what's going on in the bedroom. And I say, well, what are you doing? And it's just like crickets. It's like strategy. Well, what do you mean strategy? You know, it's like, well, we gotta break down, you know, what is your strategy? Like I have a formula that I call the crush formula, right? And it's like, oh, you know, C stands for comfort. Well, okay, we got to be comfortable, right? If you're not comfortable physically, you're going to limit the chance that you can get hard, right? R for recognize. Like we gotta recognize that we have two different pathways, right? We have two different erectile pathways, and one is more reliable than the other, right? We gotta understand that there is a default state, you know? And when we understand like what is our default state and we have those metrics, well, now we know what is the true version of us. Because most of the time, you know, the guys, they go into the interaction and, you know, they have a bad day, they fail. And they make that them. They say, this is who I am.
Right. They anchor emotion.
They anchor the emotion to that thing. It's like, no. We've got your metrics. We know what your default state is. That's the true you. That is who you are, right? Then we go into S, which is satisfy. We got to get her off first. We got to lower that albatross of performance from around our neck, right? Then we go into H, hyper focus. We need to be focused on what we're doing, not what we're thinking. And then finally, the other H, which is hint of blood phenomenon, which is using that to build a positive feedback loop so that you can do incredible things, right? And so we go through that whole process because that's the best way to get guys into action.
You know, this springs to mind now. There's a lot of guys out there watching porn, right? And what is something that what you see in porn is just for the screen, but is not going to serve in any way, you know, off screen? Because we spoke about this, and it's like, it's, you know, it's a performing art.
Oh yeah,
it's a performing art, right? It's a performer. I'm a sexual performer, and I think when you sit there and listen to that phrase, you think, okay, yeah, this isn't how it really is. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, okay, so there's a whole lot of thoughts on that. You know, first of all, what people have to fundamentally realize, and I don't know that they do, is that everything in a porn movie is created for visual impact. So that means the positions we're choosing for visual impact, right? The way we're doing the positions, the angle of the positions, everything is about, will it look cool? And can the light and the camera see it?
Right.
Right. That's everything. So we just even start there. So in terms of positioning, it's like, you know, like pile driver. I'm for sure. I guarantee you, there's somebody that saw pile driver in a porno and it's like, you know, that'd be really cool.
What the fuck is pile driver?
Like, oh man, if we could like edit that into this after where he's like, this is pile driver. It's horrible. Just trust me on this, Johnny. Okay, you're gonna be like, no, this is not fun. But I guarantee you, there's somebody that tried it because they thought, oh, I saw them do that.
And there's also someone out there that's putting pressure on themselves because like, oh, I'm not good enough because I can't do it to, like the guys on screen, but not realizing like what you just said there, it's only to look good on screen, not necessarily for her to feel good.
It's not about feeling at all. And here's the thing, like and this is where being on both sides of the camera is exceptionally useful, and something that I talk to my clients about all the time is I say, look, I know what works because I know what doesn't work. I've done it all, right? Like you can't even understand until you've been in that position and you understand like, hey, here's what happens when the camera's rolling. Here's what happens when the camera's off, right? But yeah, I mean, the positioning, the pussy eating, you know, because even pussy eating, like, you know, in my book, I go into the actual techniques that work.
I mean, it's crazy. How many pages are there? Like 265?
Something like that, yeah.
On how to eat a pussy?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
that's extensive. I mean,
well, because hey, you know, I got a quarter of a century worth of study, right? Like there's a lot that goes into it. But I mean, it's funny how many times I've been with somebody. Like I did a seminar in Colombia, and you know,
don't get me started on your seminars.
First question I asked them though is I said like, you know, what are you guys paying attention to?
Yeah.
And literally the room is just full of crickets, and they're like, Am I supposed to be paying attention to something? Am I supposed to be feeling something? And it's like, well, that's why you failed, because until you know what it is you have to feel for, until you know what it is you have to pay attention to, until you know how to be able to read the cues, the primary cues of her body, you won't be effective. Because most guys, they get lucky one time. Like, hey, I went down on her and I got this one girl named Susie. I got her off one time. And then they try Janet and Debbie and all these other girls, and it never works. It's like, well, because when I say, well, what worked on her? I don't know.
But why is that? Why is that to some, you know, like it might be a guy has been able to get every girl that he's met in his life off, but then there's this one that he just can't. You know, is it a psychological thing? Is it a pressure thing? Is it a position thing? Is it all of the above?
Well, when I look at girls that are difficult, because I always say 85% you can get off super fast. The other 15%, we're going to have different variables in there. Okay, so you're going to have the girl that is hypersensitive, right? Meaning that if you were to apply too much pressure, it's going to feel like electric shocks, and it's going to feel like almost like ticklish. So then it's like we're going with a flat tongue versus a pointed tongue technique, right? So we're changing the actual technique, and we're changing.
Right, you're saying what, the girl that's more sensitive gets the flat tongue rather than the pointy.
Yeah, because it's basically she can't take that much pressure.
Taking that. So
yeah, exactly, right. But you know, because if you're able to spread out the pressure rather than at a single point, you know, it's like girls wear high heels. Well, if she's got the stiletto steps on your toe, you're like, but you know, she's got a big wedge steps on your toe, you're like, oh, this ain't so bad, right?
Yeah,
same principle.
Yeah.
So there, it's first off, we're looking at changing technique, right? Then it's like, well, sometimes it's level of skill for the guy, because he's got to be able to really feel the nuance. Because with some girls, it's a nuance game. Some girls, it's simply a time game.
That's true.
And the time game is really important. And this is why when I talk about the clitoral engagement, and I talk about the primary cues, you have to trust them. And this is why, because like, let's imagine, you know, I know we're in London, but pretend we're in America, right? Imagine you're driving from LA to Las Vegas, right? And I mean, that drive is a 4-hour drive, right? But if I told you, Johnny, and I lied to you and I said, it's going to be a 2-hour drive, and 2 hours in, you're like, where the fuck is Vegas? Like, I swear Vegas is supposed to be here by now. You're on the right freeway.
You're just not
and
there
if you
yet.
just stayed on that freeway, you're going to end up in Vegas. But because you think, oh, it should have happened by now, you go to do something different.
Yeah, great
And
analogy.
you pivot, and it's like, man, it was just time, right? And that's where it's like, you know, you're with a girl, and she might be
pussy licking, man.
She might be the 10 or 12-minute gal and all you got to be is consistent, but you get in your head, you know, and that's where, you know, I tell guys, get out of your head and trust the primary cues, because they won't lie. This will fucking lie to you. Like, you can get all sorts of stories, right? Like, oh, you know, the last girl was 3 minutes, and oh, we're at 6 minutes here, and I don't know, you know, and what is she doing? Is going to happen? Is she not liking it? Maybe I should change, do something else. And that's the problem. It's like you go with that left turn. It's like, man, you should have just stayed straight. Like, Vegas is close.
Yeah.
Right?
Really listening to the body.
It's
Looking for
all the
those
body.
cues. Yeah.
It is all
totally.
the body. Like, you know, the worst thing that guys can do is think that whatever Broadway show that she's putting on is all the reality. Because if a girl is going to fake orgasm, it's the first thing she's going to do, right? So you have to have physical cues to say that the audible cues are correct.
Right.
The physical will never lie to you. The auditory, it might be real, might not be.
Yeah.
So it's
true.
like,
yeah.
I take guys through a checklist of like, here's what we're paying attention to in this order. Look at these. Hey, do we have this? Check. Do we have this? Check. Do we have this? Check. Okay, we can trust this now. Check.
Right.
Okay, we are on that metaphorical, the golden brick road on the way to the Wizard of Oz. Just stay the course and, we'll peel back the curtain, see the wizard, say hi. Tin Man will be all happy. Life is good.
All right, I got another one. Like, every guy's going to want to know this. Like, what are your views on how a guy can last longer?
That's easy, right? Like when I take guys through that, it's mostly, because I had a client just 3 months ago. Client came to me, one-on-one client. And he was averaging 30 seconds to a minute, right? And, obviously this is a problem in his relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So he came to me, he's like, hey, I don't know, but, I've heard about you. I know your process. I say, no problem. Here's what we're going to do. I want you to do X, Y, Z, right? And we executed on it. In about 4 weeks, we had him at 20 minutes.
Great.
It's like from 1 minute to 20 minutes.
What were those things?
So what we're doing is we're playing with altering the neurology, right? Which is specific exercises that I'm having them go through every day, right? Because here's the thing. We have to train our bodies. The biggest misnomer that guys have is that they think, hey, you know what? I'm just going to be a super stud coming out of the womb. Well, I don't know if you remember Kobe Bryant. That motherfucker was doing like 20,000 shots a practice or something, right? Tom Brady. What's Tom Brady doing? He's not riding the pine all season. I mean, he is throwing all season. So you can't just sit there and say, hey, you know what? I'm not going to do any sort of exercise. I'm not doing any sort of training to last longer. I'm just going to pack this little guy away. Let's just pack him away. And then, oh, it's the Super Bowl. Hey, I expect to, just throw touchdown after touchdown.
So what are you talking about? You give them like some stroking exercises with themselves?
I give them a specific masturbation regimen. I give them specific perineum exercises. I give them metrics that they have to go through, right? I give them biohacks to be able to last longer, because conceptually, my whole paradigm is about this concept that I call the 5-minute marker, right? And this was one of the things that I found really mattered when it came to the bedroom, right? And I saw with all my contemporaries. So doesn't matter. I've seen this time and time again, because it's like I performed side by side with the best in the world. And I would always see, like, I could have a sensitive day. I could have a day where it's like, whoa, 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 right? We're like, stick and move, kid, right? Yeah. and same with my contemporaries. Like, I've been there where I've seen guys struggle, right, but it's always for that 5 minutes. And what I learned is, okay, like if we can get past this 5 minutes, we can start to get agency, right? Body starts to desensitize. Now we can grab the reins of the beast, so to speak, right? So a lot of time, guys make the issue around, I need to last 1 hour. I need to last 45 minutes. No, you need to last 5 minutes. Let me get you there. Now your world's going to change. New abilities are going to open up. So I take them through that. I take them through a supplement regime, right? I take them through a massive strategy implementation, because strategy or lack of strategy is one of the biggest problems a guys face when it comes to the bedroom as well. Because, they're just like doing whatever. And it's like, no, whatever's not going to cut it. Because I could break down what you're doing easily, and I can say, well, the reason you're not lasting is because you're starting position. The reason you're not lasting is because the apparatus you're choosing. the reason you're not lasting is because of XYZ.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely true. I mean, there's certain positions that you just feel overtly more sensitive than the others.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And that's going to be within the individual. So we have to look at that, and then we have to look at, other things we're playing with, we're playing with breath, we're playing with depth, like we're playing with supplements. Like I take guys through a supplement regime if they are overly sensitive to help bring that down. So, the problem that the way guys look at it sometimes is they think of lasting longer as in this, this quick fix pill, right? Because so many people now, they want that one thing. It's like, no. Lasting longer is a multifaceted approach. Like when I come at it, I'm coming at it at all the angles. Because here's the thing too. When you're there, it's like, and I've run this experiment. It's kind of a fun experiment because I did it. I did it last year where I was like, you know what? I'm going to push myself to the limit. So it was like 17 days. Didn't masturbate, didn't touch my dick, packed it away. And I'm like, okay, now we're pulling it out, right? Imagine how sensitive I was, right? And I'm like, no, I'm just going to reach into the toolbox. Because when you got the different tools, it's like, okay, now I can, I look at it like Tom Brady, right? I know we're going American football again, and we're in the land of soccer, but let's just go with it, right? So you're Tom Brady, and he goes up to the line of scrimmage, okay? And if the defensive formation isn't good, and he's looking out there and he's like, oh, fuck, man, I'm going to get sacked. This doesn't look good. Like, what does he do, right?
Great strategy.
Calls an audible. He's like, okay, formation's bad. He's like, blue 42, right? And everybody knows, oh, change the strategy because this is no good. But you're doing that in the bedroom. You're like, okay, right? This position's no good. Okay, what do I got to do? Let's switch position. Let's go into a position that's going to create pain. Let's use sleight of hand maneuvers over here. Like you're moving all around without the woman knowing that you're struggling. And this is the key part, right? Because if we're looking at it from our own mental perspective, we need as men to stack wins.
Yeah.
We can't be stacking losses because our level of confidence and our level of competence is going to be how many wins are we stacking, right? So if you have the ability to now call that audible, do it in silence, as the woman just thinks you're God.
Transition into might be a central movement, around the breasts or around the back, or it might be just switching up position.
Even switching your positions. You're moving to pussy eating. You're going this way. There's so many things that are at our disposal.
Yeah. There was something we spoke about, and it was something you said you shared with the guys that are struggling with this, is to inflict pain on yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, we can.
Which was interesting. Actually, I experimented with that, and I found it quite interesting because the idea you shared was like, if you're at it and you find a place where you can inflict pain. I mean, not too sordid, but like a pinch or something. Your mind draws attention to that as opposed to the feeling in your dick.
Yeah, like there are so many tactics that we have.
Yeah,
right. Prevention of testicles rising. Right, like there's.
Oh, you mean what the cock rings are for? Pulling the testicles?
No. Different technique. Technique. Yeah. But works, right? And these are ways that I can biohack the body. Right. And the whole point of doing it is we're getting to this marker.
Right.
We're getting to this marker.
Right. What are your views on guys that are struggling with like condoms? Right. When you first start dating someone and you first start having sex, like the use of condoms is a big subject.
Yeah.
Right. Of course, guys prefer not to use condoms, but I definitely am an advocate of using them and having safe sex. But for guys, it's difficult to maybe hold an erection with condoms. So, I mean, how would your advice be any different from what we just spoke about now? Like,
well,
how do you just get comfortable with wearing condoms and performing well?
Well, so that's two different things that we're looking at there, right? And again, this goes into pathways because then we have to lean on specific pathways as much as we can because there's two different erectile pathways, right? You got the psychological erection, you got the physical erection. So now we're in a situation where we have somewhat inhibited our physical erection. So what does that mean we got to do? Well, we have to, first of all, be very specific in condom choice. And this is where most guys fuck up.
Right.
Like the biggest thing where they go wrong is they think that all condoms are created equal. They are not.
Right.
Right? And most of the big brands suck.
Okay.
So the first thing I tell guys is, look, you got to go boutique on this stuff.
Right.
Number one.
Where'd you get the boutique condoms? Like, what do you mean by that? Like,
So there's a number of different brands, and you're going to find them typically in high-end sex shops. Because you're not going to find them at the Tesco.
Forget your ERIK'S, forget your Trojans.
Garbage.
Skin.
Garbage.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, well, really interesting to hear some of the brand names you're talking about.
Yeah, because for me, they're mass market, but they don't feel that good.
Right.
Right. And we're looking to keep ourselves as sensitive as possible, because you're still going to be limiting what you can feel, but we don't want to limit it too much.
Right.
And then we have to be really smart on positioning. We got to lean into, okay, rather than doing positions for novelty, we got to double down on positions for effect.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like in those cases, you may not be able to do what you'd be able to do without a condom. And this goes back again once we're thinking about it in terms of mentality of men, right? It's like, well, I always had it like this, Johnny. If I was going to do anything, if I have less than an 80% chance of pulling it off, I don't do it. And I'm always shocked sometimes guys, they'd be 50-50 at best and they're trying to do something. I'm like, like if we were doing like Russian roulette and you think, hey, 50-50, is that good odds?
No.
I mean, even 85 isn't necessarily an odd I'm playing with there, but it's still better. So a lot of times, like, you will internally know what you can do or what's a real maybe. And when you're struggling or you're using condoms and you're like, I don't know if I'd be able to do that position, you're better off staying with what you can do, because you're going to protect your mind.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you're going to be coming out of there with a win. You're going to be coming out being effective. She's going to be happy. You got to win. You built that confidence, rather than like trying to I want to get fancy. One of the things I see with guys so much, and I think it's also the negative aspect of porno, is rather than be effective, they want to be fancy. It's like those two things are not in the same world.
Fancy, like a ridiculous position.
Ridiculous position. It's like, I always say, Kama Sutra, 1,001 positions, 4 useful ones.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And I don't know if you remember Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah.
Remember, he's chasing his maid Mary, and she's in the barrel, and he's running through the town in Tunisia, and then he gets to a big square. And suddenly, there's this big ominous figure with the black garb. He's got the big sword. He does all the fancy sword tricks. Indiana Jones, what does he do? Pulls out the gun, one shot, psh, done. Don't be fancy, be effective.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things I see time and time again guys do. It's like, hey, especially if you've got condoms, like let's keep it simpler so we can maximize sensations. Let's protect our mental health. Let's start leaning in, especially into the things that we are doing, right? Because we need to create that psychological erection as much as we can. Because the psychological erection can be something that'll save us in those situations. Like if we've lost, let's say you lost 25% of sensation, right? That's a fair bit. So it's like, okay, we need to be doing positions where we will feel more, and we need to be doing things that are going to turn us on. Because a lot of times, and this, I'm a big proponent of this, is that you need to think about yourself first in terms of the bedroom. Meaning, like, you need to be doing only the things that turn you on. I always say, whatever you're doing, do it for you. Don't do it for her. Because
you're doing it for her anyway, at the end of the day. Like, you're doing it for you to get you in the right state for her.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's like if you're on the airplane, Well, put your own oxygen mask on first, right? It's like, if I'm not doing the things that's going to allow me to be able to be confident, maintain my erection, be able to give you a good time, well, there's going to be no good time.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, if I'm
By
sitting
the way,
there.
that's just not a bit of advice for sexual performance. That's just for advice for being a man.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. Right?
Okay.
But, it's like it's so important.
Are there any things that we haven't uncovered? I mean, what was going through my mind there in terms of like doing things for you? My mind moved off to think about the confidence to talk about those things. And that's something that I work with with clients as well. It's like, if you don't talk about your wants, needs, desires, fantasies, then, that's going to come and creep up and bite you in the ass later on down the line, because there's going to be so much fear and shame attached to perhaps sharing those things. So is that conversations you've had with clients as well to help them introduce those interactions with their partner?
Well, the first thing that when I talk about clients is I like, understand what it is that you want first. Like I always talk about it in terms of like, what are your sexual values? Because if you don't know what you want, everything's going to go, fall apart. Like you got to understand yourself first before you're even thinking like, well, is this partner on my page? Because, if a guy is there and you say, well, it's like if you say, well, what kind of girl are you attracted to? I don't know. What kind of position do you like? I don't know. What kind of sex do you like? I don't know. Well,
yeah,
it's giving us a hard place to start from.
Yeah.
Right. And I look at sexual satisfaction, big picture, as comprising 3 parts. So the first part is sexual alignment. And that to me is still the most important thing. If we don't have sexual alignment, we don't have anything. Like big picture in terms of what is going to be the enjoyment, right? And that's where we get into the 4 different types of pussies, and we go into how does there's
a couple of times I've been having this conversation with my friends about this, and it was like, because there's like 3 or 4 different types of pussies, and what are you talking about? I go, no, and it was smooth, velvety,
yeah, granular, tight,
loose.
Right?
Yeah, I always forget the loose one.
Yeah. But it's that that cross section that is going to be comprising every woman. She's somewhere along that slider between granular and velvety, and she's somewhere on that slider between loose and tight. And there is going to be a combination of those that fits you specifically. And
that's right. I mean, we spoke about this before. It's like some lovers you have, and you think, wow, that's like a perfect match.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't matter how toxic the relationship is.
Doesn't matter.
You're like, well, no, because like the sexual chemistry, and you fall in love with the poetry of all of that. So yeah, that's an interesting point. The different alignments.
And that's the problem is people call that exactly what you said. They say, oh, it's the sexual chemistry. And I say, it's not the chemistry.
Yeah.
Sexual chemistry is something completely different. That's purely sexual alignment. That's biology.
Yeah.
And, whether you love it or not, most of our satisfaction begins there. And if you deny that, because that's what I see all the time. It's like, the Cosmo magazine, this, that, or this sexual coach, they all say, it's all about communication. I said, no, it's not. Like communication is way at the bottom. The first thing is the alignment. If we don't have the alignment, it's like me saying, like, you're a lot taller than me, Johnny, right? So I can't use you as the example. I'll use myself for example, right?
Don't use me as an example of your sexual
deviance.
What?
But like, I'm 5'10", right?
Right.
There is no amount of me communicating that to you that's going to make me 7 feet tall.
Yeah.
It's like I could communicate to you. I was like, Johnny, I really want to be 7 feet tall. And you're going to be like, too bad, man. Yeah. Too bad. And that's the thing. It's like we get out there and we say that it's all about communication. Communication ain't getting me to the NBA. Being 7 feet tall is getting me to the NBA.
How important is, I remember after having a bit of a hiatus of not being at the gym, and I said, you know what, I'm going to give myself a kick up the ass and get a personal trainer. And went down there, hired the most smiley man on the board, and I was like, you'll do. And I go, he goes, well, what's your goals? And I just go, I want a body like a male porn star. I want a body like a male porn star. So I guess it's two sides to this. Like, how important is fitness to getting a girl off, right? And second part is, how much do you train and what goes into looking the way you do, you know, for your work?
So in terms of fitness, what I would say that's so important is some level of muscular strength, like some sort of strength training, because here's the thing.
Nothing worse than trying to pick a girl up and you're like,
yeah,
I gotta put her down.
Well, I mean, and I have a strategy that I use to last longer in the bedroom that actually involves that. Right. But if you can't do that, you can't use that strategy. Right. But if we're looking in terms of your abilities to be able to embody different archetypes, because I talk at length about archetypes in the bedroom because it matters. Like, if you want to really be able to have a woman desire you for long term, you got to be multiple lovers, right? Because if boredom creeps in, you know, what happens? Maybe she's like, oh, well, you know, that guy over there, you know, mind can wander. So if you can be the tender lover, you can be the passionate seducer, you can be the crazy spontaneous guy, and you can be the dominant power fucker. And that's a different archetype. But if you don't have the strength to do it,
you
don't have the physicality to do it.
What you just said is fantastic. You know, like you can be all of these multiple lovers all wrapped into one.
Yeah.
You know, rather than just being that same guy that does it the same way, same routine.
And it's all about creation.
Sure.
Like I often tell my clients, it's like, what do you want to create? I find this is the best metaphor for the bedroom. It's like, you know, you and me as a man, we're the painter. The woman is the canvas. What do you want to create today? Because how you are showing up as a man is going to be the woman that shows up in the bedroom. You know, you want a porn star in bed, that's going to come from your energy towards her, right? You want a tender flower in the bedroom, it's going to come from your energy towards her.
It's a reflection. Yeah.
You want someone to do something crazy, oh, it's coming from you.
Yeah.
Like, here's the thing. Most women, if you can lead strongly, they will follow. If they believe in you, they feel safe, and they trust you, right? I've done it before many times where it's like, you know, I remember this was at a train station with my girlfriend, right? And we're sitting around waiting in the train station, and picture this, like we both have 2 suitcases. I got my little dog at the time, like in a little doggy case, right? And I just get a bug up my ass, and we're at the train station. I look around, I see a little bathroom, and I'm like, kind of give her a look, and I'm like, she's like, I'm like, yeah. So yeah. There we are. I drag her into the woman's bathroom.
Wait, where'd you put the dog?
Dog was in the bathroom stall with us. So imagine
what that dog hasn't seen. Oh,
so imagine this, right? So we're in this bathroom stall in the train station, 2 luggages, toilet seat down, little dog container on the toilet seat, and I'm giving her doggy against the wall, right? Against the door. And then of course some old lady comes in to do her hands, right? So it's like suddenly you go quiet, like, okay.
And the dog's keeping still for this as well?
Oh, my dog was great. My dog, well trained. My dog has seen a lot, Johnny. Yeah. Okay, my dog's seen a lot. So, but this was the thing, right? She would never have come up with that idea herself. But when I lead it strongly, I'm like, hey, let's do this. But guess what? Here we are. This is years later. I still remember this story. She will remember the story vividly. So we created a moment. I created a moment, but I did it consciously.
Yeah.
It's like, we're doing that. Come with me. It's going to be fun. But that's an archetype. That's the crazy spontaneous guy. Now, I wouldn't be doing that every week because you do it every week. At some point, it's like, oh, okay, oh, he's doing it again. But this is like, you're like the who's the guy that sprinkled the salt, like
Salt Bay.
Yeah, Salt Bay. Yeah. You're the Salt Bay. You're just like
you're seasoning it.
You're seasoning the relationship with that moment, and when you season the relationship with that moment, you get some really good fucking steak.
I want to give you the opportunity to let the audience know where they can find you.
everhardacademy.com. That is my main program for men. It's over 120 video modules. It's not safe for work, just for anyone that's wondering, right? Because I don't talk. You know me, Johnny.
Yeah.
I'm not a talker. I'm a doer. And so what I have in there, it's the play-by-play. I show exactly how I'm getting the girls off. It's live footage. I take guys through the steps. I take them through my mindset. I even have footage in there. Me, town square, police across the street, getting a hard on. Okay? Live. And you can see, and I talk
No
you through.
performance anxiety there.
But that's the thing. I had performance anxiety that day, and I show exactly my process to overcome it, because you can overcome this stuff. So yeah, everhardacademy.com, and I do one-to-one consulting.
Yes,
that's
do.
the sexual mastery system.
You've worked with some of my clients.
Yep, exactly.
So I can vouch for the work he's doing is fantastic. Yeah. And of course, unleash your sexual superpowers, the Tao of Easting Pussy.
Yeah.
What I wanted to do as well is kind of think of something we can do to maybe for some of the guys to win some signed copies of the book.
I love that.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
I think maybe like how many can you give away?
Oh, well, let's give away 20.
20?
Yeah.
Okay, so the first 20 people to engage with this video, whether it's a comment, a comment, we're gonna pick you guys out, and we're gonna message you, and we're gonna send you a signed copy of Eric's book. How about that? Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah,
Cool.
because that is the definitive guide. After that,
wait, which book? Are we talking both books, or
no, we're talking Tao.
Tao of Easting Pussy?
Yeah.
It's a lot of pages of how to eat a pussy, man.
Yeah.
Dude, thanks for coming on. It's always great. I mean, as soon as I saw you were in town, I had to grab you.
Yeah.
So
this is excellent.
here we are.
Here we are once again.
Thank you, man.
You're welcome.
There we have it, guys. That was Mr. Erik Everhard. So follow all the links under the video. There's plenty more there. There's the Academy. You've got the opportunity there to win a signed book. Do hit subscribe. There's going to be plenty more of these videos. We're having a bit of a run at the moment, so stay tuned. Thanks for watching.